Hello and a very warm welcome to Campaign Chronicles, France 24's regular countdown to the presidential election. With just under 2.5 months to go, this is what's coming up on this week's show. A European love affair or political pragmatism, Angela Merkel throws her support behind France's president. France 24 meets the presidential candidate with no personal ambition. And in Faces and Places, we'll meet a man who's battling to save his job. First, though, a look at a wrap of this week's news with a step rightwards from the Conservatives, domestic harmony with the Socialists and a hostile reception for Marine Le Pen.
Fighting fire with fire, Prime Minister François Fillon, followed by his government, stormed out of the National Assembly on Tuesday. That after an opposition MP compared declarations from the Interior Minister to the Nazi regime. The spark, Claude Guéant's claims that not all civilizations are equal, a provocative statement leading to accusations he's wooing far-right voters. Photo opportunity of the week, this handshake between the socialist presidential candidate and his likely rival Nicolas Sarkozy. Their first public meeting in almost a year. That as the not yet candidate and still president upped his pre-campaign rhythm. Sarkozy rolled out his probable programme in the press. Amongst the key promises, a referendum on rights for the unemployed. No hard feelings for Ségolène Royal. 5 years ago, she was the Socialist Party's candidate. This week in Marseille, she was on the campaign trail for her ex-partner, François Hollande.
I'll go wherever necessary, to where I'm asked to go.
Hollande's team is counting on Royal to mobilise her support base, especially in areas where abstention levels are high. She says she's changed, but not everyone's convinced. A noisy welcome as Marine Le Pen visited the overseas department of Réunion. That drew a provocative response from the far-right leader.
Oh, I'm used to it. They bark, but they don't bite.
Le Pen may consider cutting her losses. Local voter support for the FN is a fraction of that in mainland France. He's this year's political breakout star. Jean-Luc Mélenchon may still be fifth in the polls, but his rallies are a sellout. A crowd of 10,000 here near Lyon, a sign of his success, as his team now has to scale up the size of the halls they're renting, testament to his rousing style.
Ceux qui résistent, ceux qui résistent, ceux qui résistent!
Well, I'm joined in the studio now by Sarah Elsas from France 24's partner, RFI Radio, for a bit more analysis. Sarah, tell us more about ties between France and Germany, how they've been getting closer.
Well, Sarkozy has had nothing but praise for Germany lately. Its low unemployment, its competitiveness. During his nationally televised interview a couple weeks ago, he kept referring to Germany as a good model for France. This week, Franco-German summit, joint TV appearances with Merkel, more mutual praise. And on Wednesday, Sarkozy even went so far as to evoke the Franco-German relationship as a good model for Israel and the Palestinians.
All right, so how does this all play into the political campaign then?
Well, Merkel has said she'll be campaigning for Sarkozy, and of course linking himself with Europe's strongest economy is probably not such a bad idea. It could backfire, though. Remember, he was elected in the first place by wooing right-wing voters now that are being courted very heavily by the National Front, Marine Le Pen. And so, of course, by linking himself with Germany, he certainly provides fodder for those Eurosceptics, for those who are worried about French sovereignty. He's already gotten flack from the left and the right about concessions he made on budgetary control. So we can imagine this coming up again in the coming weeks.
All right, well, we'll watch out for that. But Sarkozy and Merkel, they haven't always been so close, have they?
No, and there's definitely been a push and pull of influence between the two. Back in the beginning of his term, Sarkozy held the rotating presidency of the EU. That was in 2008. He took that role very seriously. He was determined to be the European president, an international statesman, and he definitely butted heads with Merkel. Remember when he introduced the idea of the Mediterranean Union? Initially, Germany wasn't even part of that, so there was tension there. So it's really only been in the last year that there's been really a 180-degree shift in the message, and the message has to change now. It's gone from follow me, I'm in charge, to now we're friends, we're partners. And those backing Sarkozy say, well, it's a new era, and of course he's banking on this to get himself reelected, but
Even though he hasn't yet announced it.
This is true, but yes, of course, we'll have to see how voters react.
All right, Sarah, thank you very much indeed. Well, our tweet of the week stays with that European theme, the socialist candidate François Hollande, indicating that the German Chancellor's support for the French president doesn't bother him. After all, given Sarkozy's poll numbers, helping him is no easy task. Well, now let's move on to something of a contradiction. As the economic crisis bites, you'd expect the far left to be making hay. But the most radical parties are struggling to get their message heard. France 24 spent a day with one candidate whose problem may just be that he doesn't even want to win.
Meet Philippe Poutou. He doesn't really look like a presidential candidate. He still works part-time in a car factory. Running for president wasn't really his idea.
I wasn't a volunteer. The others talked me into doing it. It's not like at the Socialist Party where they're queuing up for the job.
As he prepares for an appearance on local TV, Poutou has been propelled into the limelight rather by default. His party, the new anti-capitalist NPA, says they want to put the focus on their ideas, not their leader. But while they remain staunchly outside the system, their candidate still has to play by the rules.
At the beginning, he used to read his speeches at the rallies. Now he's completely integrated the message he wants to get across, so you could say he's progressed.
He may have progressed, but ahead of the evening speech, stage fright is still an issue. And after 6 months as candidate, he now knows the party's radical policies off by heart, even if he hasn't yet made them his own.
The only thing that produces wealth is work. We know that. It's us that makes things. It's us that makes the economy work. But that's what's causing the problem for the bosses, the state and the government.
NPA sympathisers say they appreciate the fact that he's just like them, but that low-key approach can also be a hindrance.
It wasn't very convincing.
It's true that Besancenot was more charismatic. He came across better, but Poutou's Poutou.
He's talking about Poutou's predecessor, Olivier Besancenot. He was at this protest near Paris on Monday to listen to the NPA's new champion. How is the new man doing?
He's like he usually is, like an activist, someone who's used to strikes and action and struggle.
That anonymity is weighing on his campaign. Poutou currently stuck at under 1% in the polls. That contrasts with 2002. A decade ago, France's two Trotskyist parties garnered almost 10% between them. Now both are being left behind by the more media-friendly, hard-line left-winger, Jean-Luc Mélenchon.
Today we're at 1% and Mélenchon's at 9%. They've got and we don't. Well, great for him. The threat is more from the bosses and the capitalist policies than from Mélenchon.
Back at the rally, the comrades may belt out the communist hymn, the Internationale, but Poutou simply relieved his speech is over. That as may be, but Poutou is going to have to wait a while till his campaign and his moment in the spotlight comes to a close. His party's sole goal is to reach the first round of the election, and that's not until the end of April.
Well, it's time now for our weekly rendezvous with French voters in Faces and Places. We've just seen how the far left is struggling to make itself heard, but one person who may be listening is our host this week, Fabrice. His job's under threat as his employer, the refinery Petroplus, says it doesn't have the money to keep the plant open.
Every day for the past month, Petroplus workers have been gathering to talk about their future. France's oldest oil refinery is under threat of closure. Fabrice has been working here for 6 years. The refinery is his life, and he's fighting to protect the jobs of the company's 550 workers.
They're trying to destroy our industry. What can we do? Maybe implement more protectionism. What we want is to safeguard France's refinery industry. Refinery helps other industries, such as fine and heavy chemicals, plastics, cosmetics, and rubber. This ultimately means that millions of jobs are under threat.
Saving these jobs also means preserving living conditions. Here at the factory, Fabrice benefits from several perks, such as meals costing under €4. He knows he's onto a good thing, especially at a time when the population's purchasing power is decreasing, which he says is unacceptable.
If people get paid €1,000 a month, what can they do with that when rent costs $700? During his 2007 election campaign, President Sarkozy insisted on better purchasing power for the working class. I'm one of these people. I'm a factory worker and I'm proud of it. Now, how come it's possible to find millions to allow a tax ceiling for the richest? How come it's possible to raise billions to rescue the banking sector while no one seems to care about the little people?
Fabrice lives in a small village. The area is peaceful and quiet, but Fabrice is concerned about safety. He wants the community police force reinstated. It was suspended in 2003 under then Interior Minister Nicolas Sarkozy.
There needs to be a local police force so that there's a link between the police and people living in the suburbs. Policemen are people, just like you and me, and people living in difficult areas need reassurance. Now we've reached such a point that there's no possible dialogue, and that's a problem.
To help take his mind off things, Fabrice likes to sing. He says music is the best way to lighten the mood when everything else seems dark.
Well, on that note, that's all we've got time for. Check out our Facebook and Twitter accounts. The addresses are on your screen now, and you can let us know what you think. We'll see you next week for more from Campaign Chronicles. Bye-bye.